What's up?
Hello, hello, hello. This is week four. This is week 4, and we're all about fawning this week. We are very excited because most people that we have talked to have never heard of this one, which is very exciting because we're finally at the point where you might learn something crazy.
Usually when you hear about this, it's like, oh, they were fawning over her or fawning over him. But that's not really what we're going to talk about when it comes to fawn the response.
Yes, when it comes to this one, it's fawning when fear makes us seek approval over the truth. That's really what starts to happen here. We got some good examples for both, but this is when we're looking for approval from others. We're looking to kind of latch on to their power, their influence, their provision in order to protect ourselves. Sometimes it's out of like almost survival, like, hey, they're your captive and the way to survive is to like definitely not cuss at them and try to stab them immediately. You got to be nice for a while before you try anything to escape, right? Like those kind of things, right? They're civil.
We're trained to be
civil, right? You know, you're supposed to be polite or whatever. But then other times it goes into overdrive, and because you're terrified of awkwardness, but you can't necessarily run away because you know, like, God doesn't want you to run away from the hard thing, and he doesn't want you to like punch someone in the face over the hard thing. So what you're going to really try and do is just make everybody love you, so that at whatever cost it takes, so that you just don't have any problems. Right?
Yeah,
and so that can get messy.
Because that's characterized by people-pleasing behaviors, excessive compliance, tendencies to prioritize
the needs of others over your own.
Right. Or your own over others.
Which
like
honestly,
it could go both ways. Because go ahead.
No, spiritual realm.
Yes.
My need is to be in line with the truth. But if getting on your good side and keeping things from having waves is to compromise all of that.
And trauma can be huge. And
absolutely. People pleasing,
like you don't want
anxious
to
attachment.
stir up. Or dude, there's
so many things.
Some very manipulative fawning too, where you're trying to get your own way. I mean, it's
and it's because you fear losing control.
Like you said, spiritual, psychological, mental.
Yes.
This is where hardcore games can be played, and I'm sure with her psych degree she could have a million different diagnoses that apply to this, and probably ones that are way overplayed and overused and used and rightly overused and unrightly not rightly used. But trauma can really make the situation interesting, because you're coming from a position of experience, and either you're carrying in a let's just go there, right? Let's go there. So you're something happens in your past, maybe it's abuse, maybe it's whatever, and then now you're going into a relationship. One or two ways that this works, and this is how the mental works. It's either you're going to become manipulative, so that you can take control of the situation, own the situation, never fall back into that situation, or you're stuck in that situation. And so then you end up bringing that situation, your past, into the present, and you just and it's interesting how those two dynamics work, because they'll almost look the same, but one is on a like submitted position and one is on a control position. Yeah,
and both of those people could be in this fawn response, right? And what I notice about fawning is often it does, like, I mean, everyone kind of does it sometimes, like depending, like in the cartoons you might see like like the little smaller normal size character, whatever, like acting cheeky, and then like the other character stands up and they're actually like 8 feet tall, and then all of a sudden you're like the character's fawning like, like, I'm sorry, you're a great person, just to try and save themselves, right? That's like a very basic time. Sometimes, that's like putting your foot in your mouth, realizing what you said and then who you're actually talking to, etc. But yeah, like I've noticed this one, we're not necessarily born with it. Right? Like fight and flight, there's literally parts of the brain that light up. But with fawning, it's a little more complex than that. But at the same time, little kids do it when they're worried about their parents, like punishing them. Oh, Baba, you're so nice. I love being around you. And so like there's levels to it, right? But I want to start, if you're okay with this, and you can reroute me, but I want to start with when it's okay.
Okay, yeah.
All right.
Let's do that.
So that you understand what it isn't,
right.
And then we can talk at the end about what it is. But I think up front, like the example that I had of fawning was, and you have it in your notes that I can't necessarily see from here, so you could like you could recite the verse somewhere.
Oh yeah,
but it's the Israelites deciding to go to the Assyrians and ask the Assyrians to beat up their enemies. So they allied with an ungodly group of people in order to come out of the situation safe, but they allied with a group of people that God never commanded them to. And they were worried about losing what God had given them, but they were not trusting in God to protect what God had given them. And so instead, they go fawn for enemies. And they do this repeatedly throughout history. Like Jeremiah and Lamentations is literally talking all about all the Israel's lovers, like their allies, and how those allies are just laughing at them later because literally they were never really their friends.
Right. But
the idea wasn't to make a real friendship, but this superficial, please protect me because you have shinier things and buffer people or something, and do our dirty work for us to keep us safe. And then as soon as the tables turned, it's like, yeah, the Assyrians sold them out, like destroyed them. You know, the Babylonians did the same thing. But they kept going back to the people that were their enemies, looking for favors, protection, and friendship, when God was like, what the heck are you doing? Stay away from them.
Right. I'm trying to think of the name of the Israelite leader too. It might be in the same area. Mm-hmm. They showed them all of their riches, all of their coffers, all of their everything.
Let me take you on a tour.
Let me just take you on a tour and let me just show you everything that we have, all the beautiful gold and all.
Don't you want to be our friend?
They got looted and raped and just taken.
Terrible.
Right? And it's just terrible. And so when we're talking about this and you were speaking it, mm-hmm. right, we don't want to sacrifice our own integrity to gain approval or avoid punishment. Mm-hmm. Especially when we're selling out. There's that word again, selling out, right? It's like, I don't want to sell out to God. Right. I don't want to sell out God.
Yeah.
I don't want God to become second place.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that I keep God right where he needs to be, and that's in complete control, and I'm having that faith that that's where he's at.
Yeah.
Because faith over fear, right?
Yeah.
Because all of these are driven by fear. It's amazing. Like that I love the depth of that. It's kind of like when we talk about anger sometimes, and we're like, okay, anger is just a reaction. Like people will sit there and think that anger is an emotion. Mm-hmm. Anger is a reaction to a deeper emotion.
Yeah, it's like a secondary emotion that comes. Right. So it's an emotion, but like it's a secondary, like it comes out with a cape on because a much more vulnerable and less cocky thing happened first. Like you were hurt, you were in danger. So anger comes in to help you be okay doing other stuff to keep you safe.
And sometimes I shy away from that secondary emotion because I don't want people to say that, but it's okay. Well, no, it's righteous anger is okay. I get it. The Bible says it. Okay, we're fine. We're fine.
Yeah.
But what caused it, right? Because it's driven. Okay, it's a driven emotion, a secondary. So that's good.
Yeah, like being angry, for example, like being angry that there are people going to hell.
Right.
Right, because like Satan is driving them astray and being angry about that, like that's kind of right. That's righteous anger, like because if you drill that down to like, okay, well, why I'm angry is because I love people and I don't want them going to hell. It's like, cool, I'm in line with the Lord. But if someone calls you fat and dumb, it's like, well, like the real tragedy here is, I mean, like it's sad that they called me that, but the real tragedy is that holds any weight in my life because God does not say either of those things about me. Like that's not the point of me. And those things are inconsequential to me. So therefore I really need to focus more on who God says I am and not give some random person the power to manipulate me with just empty words.
Dude, I remember school bullies, the people who are bullied, and then seeing sometimes how the bullied would respond to the bullies. And a lot of times it was like they were trying to get in their good graces.
It was so sad.
It was sad to watch because it's the hugest form of manipulation that you can find, right? On both sides and probably unknowingly by the bullied because they don't,
they're just desperate,
right?
They're desperate.
But on the other side, this manipulation and then allow it, like then they use them to get these things, and then they still bully them. And it's just this horrible pattern that we see.
Yeah.
Right. And actually, really, the biggest threat that we have is trying to seek approval of man. And especially when we need to find it in God.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where we become healthy, right? So bullies, let's sit in there for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Bullies are just trying to make their friends laugh. They're again sad. The levels to this. They're doing the same thing as the bullied, except in their group to their friends, their whatever.
If they have friends.
If they have friends.
Yeah, because there's different levels.
Did,
yeah.
But a lot of them did.
Oh,
a lot of them had a little crew that they ran around with, okay?
Yeah.
And it was like they were just feeding off of one another and pleasing one another. And there was obviously no God in that.
Right.
Because if God would have been in that, they wouldn't have been doing all of that, right? Galatians 1:10 actually files this up. Obviously, I'm not trying to win the approval of people, but of God, this is Paul, right? If pleasing people were my goal, I would not be Christ's servant. Right. That is a deep verse. Mm-hmm. Are we Christ's servant? Are we and serving people as through Christ, right? Mm-hmm. Or are we serving people for self-interest?
Yeah.
Or serving people self-interest on all levels, either to feed out or to be fed in, right? Mm-hmm. And so really watching how the manipulation is running.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you what, this world is manipulating. Mm-hmm. The enemy is nothing but a manipulator.
I mean, technically, the devil is doing a lot of fawning.
Right.
To try and get people to give up their God-given authority. Right. And appease him so that he can have a little something while he's here, you know? Yeah. But earlier I was like, I want to say what it's not. And then I didn't. I said what it is. Sorry, y'all. But
so what it's not.
So that's what it is. Okay. Sorry guys. But, what it's not is when you are kind to your enemies, when you show them the love of Christ. That's right. A kind of, I guess you can call it fawning because it's very similar in this situation, but you're not doing it for your gain. You're doing it, God willing, one, for the glory of God, and two, God willing, for the person on the receiving end's gain, if they were to come to Christ or become closer to Christ because of the love that you're showing. And so the idea there is just obeying God and showing your enemies. I mean, really, the hope is you don't have any, but let's be honest. Like, if you're being persecuted, they're not your friend. They don't see you as a friend, even if you, like Jesus would call Judas a friend. Like, it wasn't reciprocated, right? So in those kind of situations, showing the love, offering them food and water. And, you know, at worst, you're heaping coals on their heads, but you're still in heaven one day. At best, that breaks through and shatters lots of chains and strings and everything in their slavery to sin. And instead, they wake up and they call on Christ and they repent themselves, and they're then actually a friend. And so that is not like, so if you're trying to be kind to somebody that's being cruel to you, that isn't immediately this fawn fear response. It's only this fear response if you're acting strictly out of fear and self-preservation instead of knowing God preserves me, I don't preserve me. And even if I do die doing this, I'm going to show love. Like going back 2 weeks, our friend was like, do you need a hug?
I love it.
Right? It was both spiritual warfare for her to offer that hug. Right. It was also her loving an enemy in that moment, not necessarily like hardcore enemy, knows name, it's been years, but in the moment, someone who was potentially an aggressor that could have been a threat, and going with the authority of the Lord, knowing the Lord keeps me safe and I have no need to fear this person because God's will is in control and I'm going to come with love, right? And that's something that can really transform a situation. And that's the godly way to do this versus everything I said before that I meant to say after, but that's how it went.
Man, they rolled up with Ephesians 4:29 where it says, let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, but only such as good for building up, as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear it, right? Hebrews 10:24-25 said, let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together, as in the habit of some, but encouraging one another all the more as you see day drawing near. Good examples, right? A lot of fawning is anxiety driven, you know, trauma driven, whatever, right? And also Proverbs 12:25 says, anxiety in a man's heart weighs him down. Listen to that. Anxiety in a man's heart weighs him down, but a good word makes him glad. I remember we were talking to a friend today, and they're going through a pregnancy, right? It's like, start singing. You told her, you like, start singing, start worshiping. And then they were looking like, I'm not the best singer. You don't have to be.
Right.
The whole point of that whole thing that you were telling her today was a good word, right? When we start to sing praises to our God, when we start to like just lift him up and look to him and say, you know what, God, I'm here with you. I'm not alone. I don't have to fawn and on the negative side. I need to fawn on the positive side. I need to build people up. I need to be your servant, your steward, everything that just you're telling the epitome of a kingdom citizen, right?
Right.
And so when we do that, like worship, you know, when you start going through a hard time after pregnancy and postpartum and all that, because it comes in, and not always the big postpartum depression, but there is, and usually there is. There's a change in hormones and all
your
kinds.
hormones are wreaking havoc.
And so, but learning that advice was beautiful because it's like, just sing praises. And she was, I know how to worship. There you go.
Exactly.
And you know what's funny is in that moment, it kind of was like, and then all of a sudden she said, I know how to worship. She raised her hands.
Right.
And there was a smile beaming off of her face.
Yes.
That's the good word we're talking about. Focus on God.
Exactly. That's so true. You know, I was just thinking like the church actually has an issue with fawning when though you notice in a church that's like trying to just get people in the door, they're willing to like sacrifice so many things to like let people just to get people in the door. Yeah. Forgetting that like if you get them in the door with the wrong thing, they're not going to want the thing that actually saves their life because they have the wrong idea about it. And when I was talking to our friend today, and I was like, just sing those praises, right? Yeah. It's like I wasn't offering like, oh, it's going to be fine. Like, no, I was telling like it's going to be hard. This is going to happen to you, blah, blah, blah. I was like, but just sing those praises. Like God will provide in those hard times because he is who we go after. Like in those hard situations, there's no one to fawn over. You can't like beg your baby that's like 3 weeks old to like act right by being their best friend. Like they it's gonna be hard, right? But you can focus on who God is and his truth and ignore all of the things. We've had some great episodes about like does pain and labor mean a lack of faith and things. It's like there's people that say if you have enough faith, like you won't experience any hard times in your pregnancy and your labor and your motherhood. It's like that's not necessarily biblical at all, but it definitely will attract people and make them come flocking to you, right? So it's like this idea of just making sure that you are seeking God's approval and not man's approval because you're terrified of how they're going to react, right? So
good. I got a question for you.
Ask.
Next week we're going to be talking about
freeze.
Are you going to freeze when you know there's a spider behind your head?
Is there really a spider behind my head?
There is.
I'm going to freeze while you take care of it. But I'm cool. Not out of fear, but out of wisdom that if I move fast, it will run away.
But hey, we love y'all.
We love y'all. Next week, we're talking about freeze. If that's your issue, remember, like, share, subscribe, all the stuff, and get this out to more people. Until next time.
And after I kill a spider. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, I hope you guys are really enjoying this mini-series on faith over fear. Subscribe now so you don't miss the rest of this mini-series where we dive deep into how to deal with fear in a godly way.